Joining us right now is the Democratic Congressman Adam Smith from Washington State. Of course, he's the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee. It's good to see you, Congressman. Thank you for coming in. What is your reaction to this unilateral ceasefire as we're now learning about it?
At this point, there's no reason to believe it. As your reporter just pointed out, the same thing was said over the Easter period, and there was no effort whatsoever by Russia to adhere to it. So it's likely just a PR campaign, but we'll see. We'll see whether or not he holds to that. But the real big message here is it seems like President Trump is finally realizing what everybody else in the world knew for years, and that is that Putin is going to push this war as hard as he can unless you stop him. And it has really hurt the process to get to peace that President Trump has put all the pressure on Zelensky. He sent a very clear message to President Putin from the start of Trump's administration that if Putin just holds out, eventually President Trump will abandon Ukraine. And that incentivized Putin to keep going forward instead of putting the pressure on Putin to force him to the peace table. Now, maybe, belatedly, President Trump has figured this out, but it's just a shocking amount of ignorance from this administration that has extended the war and placed Ukraine in greater jeopardy.
I was going to ask you what you're hearing from your sources and contacts with European allies, with that image of the president's knee-to-knee in St. Peter's Basilica for the Pope's funeral, the way Trump is now talking about it, coming out of it, and when he landed back in the States on Sunday. Do you truly think there is a shift now from the president in his perspective in terms of a better chance that this ends well for Ukraine?
I doubt it, but I think the way I would characterize the way Europeans and others who strongly support Ukraine have reacted to this, it's a tiny sliver of hope in what has been a dark few months from this administration. And actually, Vice President Vance has been the worst on this. He has sent the signal over and over again that we're not going to continue to support Ukraine. So I think what you saw and what you've probably heard now from Europeans and others who support Ukraine, it's just that tiny sliver of hope that maybe at some point President Trump is finally going to get what's going on and react accordingly. But it's early, and we'll see. We'll see if the ceasefire holds. We'll see if President Trump's administration actually is willing to put pressure on Putin to force him to the peace table. It's a sliver of hope, but there's still a lot that we have to learn about where it goes from here.
Absolutely is. And is the Secretary of State and on up and down saying that this week they view as critical to see if there's where this is going to go in terms of the negotiations at all. I also want to ask you, because you have been talking a lot about, you and I have talked about it before, and you've said other places, about how the Democratic Party needs to course correct now after the election loss. And in a new interview out just this morning with The Atlantic, President Trump is giving his take, I guess is the way I would describe it, for the Democratic Party. Let me read this for you. He said, quote, "I think that the Democrats have lost their confidence in the truest sense. I don't think they know what they're doing. I think they have no leader. You know, if you ask me now, I know a lot about the Democratic Party, right? I can't tell you who their leader is. I can't tell you that I see anybody on the horizon." Now, of course, Congressman, you do not need or want Donald Trump's advice on the direction of the Democratic Party, but do you think he's right that there really isn't a leader of the party right now?
Well, I mean, he's wrong in the sense that that's not the point. The point isn't whether or not we have one person, and typical of a wannabe dictator to look at it from the standpoint of we have to have one person. That's not my issue. My issue is we have to have a message. We have to rebuild our coalition and rebuild our brand. And I've been saying it's a three-step process. Number one, we have to clearly attack President Trump for the wannabe dictator he is, for challenging the fundamental basis of our democracy. And if people don't agree with us on that, we have to make the case. Stories out today about children being deported without due process. The stories go on and on. Number two, we have to show how what Trump's policies are doing is harming America. We've certainly seen the financial impact of his chaotic approach to tariffs, of the way he's been decimating our federal government. But number three, and this gets to the point, we have to recognize that Democrats need to offer a reasonable alternative. We have to have ideas. And number one at the top of that list, Economic inequality in this country is the biggest problem. We have to recognize that and tell people that we're going to stand up for the working class, and I think admit some of our past mistakes. We have not successfully done that, and there's a lot of different reasons for it. A lot of policies have gone in the wrong direction. There's been too much of a focus on ideology. We need to come out with a clear set of ideas and a clear set of plans. It will not be enough to simply criticize Trump, although that criticism is richly deserved, and the American people are suffering because of his presidency. We have to build a reasonable alternative, but it is not about one person. Right. It is about a message, an agenda, and building a coalition.
When you talk about talking about income inequality, AOC and Bernie Sanders have been talking about that quite a lot. That's the whole theme of their going across the country tour, and they're pulling in huge crowds. They're AOC really seizing the moment and trying to define the party in its direction now. But do you think pushing the party more to the left is the right answer to Democratic soul searching?
No, I do not. I think what Bernie Sanders and AOC are doing is they're preaching to the choir. And don't get me wrong, that needs to be done. You need to get the choir fired up. You need to make sure that we stay engaged and energetic. But they're not reaching to a broader base of people. And look, I don't view this as a left-right thing. I think centrists have made mistakes. I mean, certainly the economic policies that were put in place, the notion that everyone was going to go off and get a 4-year degree and become an engineer and that was going to solve the problem, didn't fix it. But I also think on the left side, the message that we are sending is, we don't like rich people, number one, and number two, we're going to give out a lot of free stuff to as many people as possible. Now, I support a robust social welfare state, but the message Democrats need to be sending is we believe in personal responsibility and hard work. Part of the reason we're losing immigrants, they don't want free stuff. They come to this country because they want to work hard and build a better life for themselves. That has to be part of our message. It can't just be if you vote for Democrats, we're going to give you free housing and free health care and free education and free everything. It's opportunity and responsibility. So I don't think going around rallies with a bunch of really enthusiastic Democrats is enough. It's important. It's a part of it. But how are we going to expand that base? How are we going to deal with concerns that people have about border security, about crime, homelessness, and drug abuse in our inner cities, about our inability to build housing? Ezra Klein has written a great book about this, how Democrats stopped having the ability to get things done, and instead we focused excessively on inclusion and process. We need to show people we can get things done. We need to show people that we still believe the work hard, play by the rules, get ahead. We have to be able to deliver that message.
Congressman, thank you so much for coming in. It's always good to have you.